Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Center for Creative Leadership product webinar, Virtual Solutions to Build Leadership Skills for the New World of Work. My name is Michelle Bryan. I'll be your webinar moderator for this session. CCL is a top-ranked global provider of leadership development. Our cutting-edge solutions are steeped in extensive research, and we work with hundreds of thousands of leaders at all levels. For the next 30 minutes, we'll explore virtual solutions designed to build critical leadership skills needed to navigate the challenges of both today and tomorrow. I'd like to introduce our CCL presenters today. Carissa McKenna, Kelly Simmons, and Monica Bortolucci are all global portfolio leads here at CCL. Welcome, ladies. I will go ahead and turn that session over to Carissa.
Hi, welcome everyone. So thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this morning. And as we look toward the future of leadership development, we thought it was important to, if we can go back just one slide, it looks like it got bumped. We thought it was important to ask, first of all, why leadership development and why right now? There's a lot happening in the world. But what we know is with leadership development helps to create the headspace that allows leaders to reflect and become more intentional about their behaviors and their impact on others in the organization. And during times of crisis or instability, when things are changing so rapidly in our COVID world and lots of things going on in our country and around the globe today, this becomes even more in times of crisis. Leaders in crisis quickly become frontline firefighters. But what we know is that organizations who will differentiate and succeed in times like this have leaders who can connect powerfully to others in this new world of work, balancing operational demands of the crisis with the strategic eye toward the future. Organizations who invest in their leaders right now will have a critical edge for creating success in the next normal. You want to go ahead and forward the slide? And here you'll see some of the research that we did just last October, asking folks in leadership development in L&D and HR decision makers why they invest in leadership development and what their investments might look like during an economic downturn. So we weren't quite envisioning the historical moment we're in right now, but the responses seem prescient. HR decision makers know that investing in their leaders can enable the organization to quickly shift their strategy to adjust in uncertain and disruptive times. They develop leaders who can balance a focus on operations and strategy, keeping the lights on today and pivoting toward the future. And finally, they're investing because they know they need leaders to be resilient and future-focused, leveraging the skill sets and mindsets needed in this new world of work. You want to go ahead forward? So when we think about why virtual, it's almost funny to ask this, right? More than half of the training that takes place out in organizations today already is virtual. And at the moment, of course, the time savings, cost savings, and risk reduction of training without travel in a pandemic world are all prominent. And you know all of this. But at CCL, we're deeply committed to creating leadership development that works for leaders and their organizations today. And from that standpoint, it's far more important to us that leaders need to lead virtually. And we know that leaders need to practice and hone their skills to become most effective. So in order to lead virtually in our globalized world, leaders need to practice virtually. And that's one of the unique opportunities that we have as we look towards a portfolio of virtual leadership development.
So we're going to dive in a little bit to what we mean by CCL's Live Online. And, you know, to Carissa's point, we've started working in the space of digital some 7 or 8 years ago, but really it's come on strong in the last few years, and that's been accelerated in the last 3 or 4 months exponentially as it has across the globe. But we really wanted to start with our roots and getting back to the essence of leadership development. And you know, we've been doing leadership development at the Center for Creative Leadership for 50 years. And back in the early days of leadership development, a program could last 12 days. So that's evolved with the times and shifted dramatically as we've moved forward. But what we really want to do is, and I want to articulate here, is what is the essence of leadership development and why it needs, and why our CCL Live Online experiences are characterized a particular way. So there's 4 main aspects to our CCL experience that shows up in the live online space incredibly well. The first of all is personalized. We know that leaders are coming from all different walks of life, from all different corners of the globe, from organizational structures that are different, from organizational cultures that are different, from for-profit, nonprofit, governmental organizations, et cetera. So they need an experience tailored to their personalized application. So in our open enrollment programs, we create that level of personalization so that while you bring a broad group of people together, you get something that meets your standards. Whether that is by putting you in a small breakout session where you're working and having deep dive conversations on topics that are relevant to just you, to all of our programs connect you back to work, connect to your real world application in a way that is only unique to you. The second aspect of the CCL experience is that it's intuitive. We know how humans learn. We're experts in that. And so really getting into the heads of people and how they learn and approach their world of work and leadership development frames the foundation of how we create our experience. So always start with why. The programs in Live Online start with a natural learning progression. We want to distill it to things that are simple, even if we're working with very complex topics. We also want to give you just the right amount of content so that it's not overwhelming, but it's the right piece of content to help you do your job better. The third aspect is relevance. And more than ever, Live Online enables people to put learning to work right away. And that's because you don't leave your workplace. Whether it's a 2-hour session, a 4-hour session, you are doing your leadership development program in the flow of everyday work, which means that, and this makes a lot of our clients happy, it means that the participant participating in the program within a day is applying that learning back at work. They're always given something to do, and they have the context and space to actually apply that learning right away. And sometimes we think of, well, we have to give up something when we move into the online environment. In reality, we think that there's a lot of opportunity for you to make gains in the online environment that you can't in the face-to-face environment. And finally, caring. We're grounded in psychology and in human behavior. And we know that for humans to develop, they need both challenge and support to challenge their mental models and the way they've been leading in the past, but they also need to be supported on their journey to make those changes. And our caring approach ensures that they get both the right amount of challenge and support to make their leadership learning happen. So in a nutshell, these are the 4 pillars of the CCL Live Online learning experience. They're founded in the core of CCL's learning in general, which is personalized, intuitive, relevant, and caring. And we think that these more than ever stand out in the Live Online environment. So now we're going to transition over to introduce 3 of our Live Online programs that are available in the open enrollment space right now.
Thank you, Carissa. So I'll go with the effective leader. So we can already actually go to the next slide. Again, give you more of an overview and a taste. So let me tell you a little bit about this program. The Effective Leader program is addressed to mid to senior level managers, and are those managers that are working in environments of rapid disruption, as we just said, and leading teams who are not co-located. Because of the crisis we are facing today, travel restrictions and increased budgets and resources have been reduced in most industries. And many organizations are transforming to respond and adapt to a new reality. This Live Online program prepares them for the ever-changing needs of this new world of work by developing the critical skills needed to succeed. When we developed this course, we took into account the need of making it as human and personal as possible while leveraging our pioneer research and knowledge on the challenges that leaders are facing today. So what you can see on screen right now is the narrative of the program, grounded on what we know are the key success factors for leaders at this level and in this context. So the story of me, you can see this, is the challenge of overcoming personal shortcomings so that we can aspirate and elevate ourselves so that we can choose to become the better version of ourselves despite disruption and uncertainty. The story of we is the challenge of leading people virtually while getting the work accomplished and commitment high. The story of us is a challenge of leading as middle managers beyond our team of direct reports and across the organization. So building alignment despite the uncertainty and the pace of change around us. We can move, Kelly, to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did I skip a slide?
Yeah. Yes, perfect. So over 2 weeks, with asynchronous and synchronous modules, participants will be immersed in compiling activities and meaningful conversations with their peers, their facilitators, and their coach, with the objective of advancing their understanding of what is needed to embrace the new leadership mindset that is required in order to lead in environments of highly disruption. They also will increase the understanding of their personality and learn how to adapt and flex their leadership style when appropriate. They will also develop new skills that will allow them to address complex leadership challenges, as how to lead their team virtually by balancing out critical polarities or paradoxes, and those are paradoxes that are typical of virtual teams, how to apply strategies for better agency within the larger organization and stakeholder groups, and how to build resiliency while leading in times of uncertainty. And especially resilience is going to be a red thread, not the key theme, but a red thread throughout, let's say, the experience. And we can perhaps move to the next one. Thank you very much. So you can see in a snapshot, let's say, flow and the structure of the program. What you cannot see right now is that, or you can see slightly, is that ahead of the effective leader, participants will need to prepare by complete our leading manager 360 and also an interpersonal needs self-assessment. They will also begin to complete the key leadership challenge, and so being able to identify their key leadership challenge will be critical for the success of their participation, because they will be working on it throughout the entire 2 weeks. This will allow them to apply their learning and advance their thinking for real-world application. They will also be invited to have a conversation with their manager so that they can deepen the understanding of where the organization is going, how the organization is best responding, and what is critical for their own development in this context. They also have available online lessons on leadership, our leadership framework, and feedback. Week 1 is mostly asynchronous, with a 90-minute kickoff to provide an orientation to the course and to the assessment reports that will be released by then, so to allow enough time to prepare for their 90 minutes one-to-one coaching session with an executive coach. This is a pivotal moment of the program, because this session allows them to make sense of all the data points they're collecting through their reports and assessment, but also to make sense of the feedback that they are receiving in relation to the key leadership challenge that they want to work on during the program. So once they go through this session with the coach, they're really prepared to deeply take the most out of the journey that is waiting ahead of them. Week 2 includes 4 days of synchronous class, 4 hours each. As Kelly was saying before, what's truly unique of these online programs is that they're happening while working, so opportunities for application are always there. We will have ample time to go through deep personal and social interaction in breakout rooms, in plenary, with their facilitators, sharing experiences between peers, and the facilitators as well. By the end of every day, very important, they will keep continuing working on their key leadership challenge. There will be the red thread of the entire week as well. And by the end of the week, they will be better prepared, more engaged, and more connected with their teams and their organization at large. And so I think that now I can give the floor to Carissa for leading across the organization.
Thanks so much, Monica. And these are all really exciting new programs. With leading across the organization, we're really tailoring a similar 2-week format into the specific leadership needs of senior leaders, those responsible for leading a function within the organization, collaborating with peers across silos, and aligning operational work with organizational strategies to move our organizations forward into the future. So the most effective senior leaders are able to think, act, and influence at both a tactical and a strategic level, balancing strategic priorities with the operational demands to get the organization to achieve its goal. In leading across the organization, we have an interactive virtual experience for leaders of divisions and functions who already have the tactical skills needed for success. And what we're doing is providing them with a high-impact learning experience through a simulation to help them begin to shift their mindset and challenge them to deepen their strategic mindset and skills. So in the Skyline business simulation, leaders are going to focus on getting results amidst ambiguity, influencing change, improving the effectiveness of their virtual interpersonal behaviors, because they will be leading in a virtual organization in a virtual environment, where they'll have to sift through information they have, how to get the right information and the right mindset and collaboration from their peers to begin to solve organizational problems and set a more strategic direction for the Skyline organization. If we want to go ahead and advance, beautiful. I'm sorry, little technical glitch on my side, just a moment. Yeah. So what are they going to learn in this simulation, in this leading across the organization space? They're really working on balancing those strategic and operational tensions. And what we find is leaders at this level are already very expert within their function and very attuned to the operational needs of keeping the business running, keeping the lights on, constantly improving efficiency. And what they're leaning into and leaning towards is a more strategic focus, how to, again, find the right information, focus on the right things in a deluge of information that's coming at them every day from up, down, and around the organization, and really collaborate outside of their function to align the work and begin to set that path toward the future. So leaders will be focusing on the tensions between those two areas, really, again, living into how do they communicate and collaborate effectively in a virtual environment with peers from different functions, with different sets of data, potentially different agendas, different viewpoints, make sense of that, and still come into alignment to steer the organization forward. They'll be practicing their influence skills using CCL's leadership framework of direction, alignment, and commitment, and using the situation behavior impact model to provide effective feedback. And the feedback part is really critical in a simulation like this, because leaders, in order to grow, in order to improve, need data. And feedback is a way that we can provide them with data that informs how am I showing up, how am I impacting others in a non-judgmental way that really fosters development. And that's a skill set that they'll be taking back with them into the work environment as well on a daily basis. So if you want to go ahead and advance, you'll see a similar format to what we looked at with the effective leader experience. Folks will have a 360 assessment, a leading the function assessment that's really tailored toward the unique challenges of leaders at this leading the function level. They'll take that along with some personal assessments and begin to develop an organizational leadership challenge that is based on their real work, and again, that will weave throughout the programmatic experience. How are they applying their learnings directly back into organizational challenge that they are charged with leading towards success? We'll have some online tools to help them and lessons as well. And in our kickoff session, they will get the results of their various assessments, begin connecting with peers on that leadership challenge, building insights, and preparing through their executive coaching session and completion of any outstanding pre-work. So that first week is largely asynchronous, giving them the flexibility to work that through their demanding work schedules, but also giving them a frame and structure to really begin to dig into the learning, to personalize it and connect directly through their work and through the learning of the course. The following week is the heart of our simulation. So we're really teeing up the strategic elements of thinking, acting, and influencing, how we give feedback, introducing the simulation. The next day is largely committed to the leaders actually running this simulated organization, working with each other, deciding how they're going to dig in. And I see a quick question in the chat around the assessments. The personal assessments that we're using in this particular program are the FIRO-B that helps leaders really uncover their interpersonal needs and how those needs may drive their behaviors when they're on autopilot, when they're not being intentional. We find that this instrument really can be enlightening when we look at team interactions, sort of who's leaning in to create inclusion, to invite others in, connect, and create strong bonds of trust, and how their need for control is showing up. So we'll be using that, and it's really well suited to debriefing the simulated experience. And so you'll see that we really spend a good chunk of time digging into unpacking the simulation. Folks will get a personalized report of how they showed up in the simulation, how the group functioned to solve problems, and then tying that in again to how they manage those, the strategic focus versus operational firefighting that they're already so good at this leader level, tying into getting that broader balcony view and beginning to apply that back to their organizational leadership challenge and how they want to translate into their work. And with that, Kelly, do you want to go ahead and jump into our next space?
Yes, thank you very much, Carissa. So the Leading Strategically experience is the third of three that we're going to present to you today, the third live online experience that we are bringing out. Since March, most of our topical focus has been really around crisis leadership, and I'm sure that's been similar for a lot of you. Obviously brought on by the pandemic and then the ensuing, economic turmoil that's occurring on a global level. One of the things that our research shows in a recession, in a recessionary economy, wherever you are, the main topic that people really need to be focused on is strategic thinking, planning, and execution, and leading and managing change, as you can see reflected here in the table. And, there's a heightened interest in our work in strategic leadership, which has been one of our core focus areas. So what we did is we pivoted the revision of this originally 4.5-day in-person program and moved it into the live online space. It's a slightly different format where we're actually having this experience be carried out over a 7-week period, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's quite manageable in a work schedule, specifically because it gives executive leaders time to learn something new and apply it back at work in a really strategic way. So the target audience for the Leading Strategically program is usually for executives and senior leaders or anybody whose work has strategic implications for their organizations. They're definitely focused on the creation or the execution of strategy across the organization. They've been told that you being a strategic leader is really important for your success and for our organization's success. So in this program, the focus is really on skill building, and it's really about leaders coming out with the whole system mindset to consistently address strategic and organizational dilemmas. It's that ability that no matter how complex or difficult the situation is, they're able to think, act, and influence strategically, which is really different than your day-to-day, modus operandi. It's about their ability to identify which of the levers in the organizational culture are required to be able to drive the needed strategy, what are the changes required, and how might they influence the organization start moving in that direction. We know that culture eats strategy for lunch, and no matter which leader is in this program, even if they're not the CEO, which they're not going to be, they are able to see the culture, see the levers that they need to pull, and start to address those with their leadership in the organization. They understand how leadership strategy, which is essentially people strategy, enables strategy formation and execution. And a lot of times people think that it's all about the numbers, it's all about the businesses we're entering and exiting, what we're investing and developing, et cetera, but it's also about the people component of all of that. And that is woven through the entire experience. And it's all about how do you build networks across the organization, how do networks surface in your organization, and how are they used to create and execute a successful strategy. So that's what we're really focused on. And there's two main levers for learning in the program. One is a strategic leadership challenge that they're going to be working on the entire time, and they're going to have very intense and deep conversations with their facilitators, with their peers that are also working on strategic leadership challenges, and that's going to be sort of that foundational anchor for learning. The other one is a high heat and high intensity simulation. We've partnered with Ability and using the Ability Enterprise experience, which is really creates in a very short amount of time a high intense environment where there's multivariables. You're making decisions in a fast way, and your variables are interdependent with everyone on your team, which is how business happens anyway. By going through that experience, people see the real impact of decisions, the real impact of communication, the real impact of having a solid strategy, the real impact of culture, and the impact of people. And so the way the program looks is that similar to the other programs, there's a prepare phase where they do some work on their strategic leadership challenge. They do a couple of self-assessments just to get a picture of how am I and how do others see me in the way that I lead strategically? What do I want to pay attention to in this program? And it's followed by that 90-minute kickoff in the very first week of the program. In this program, a lot of content is going to be delivered asynchronously through our online CCL Learning Accelerator platform. This is going to enable us to optimize that in-program experience. And so they're going to basically spend 2 weeks, weeks 2 and 3 are going to be spent with 2 4-hour modules a week where they're engaged in the business simulation and focused on learning key bits of content and tying that into their real work and their strategic leadership challenge. So if you look at weeks 2 and 3, just know that those, and this will be sent to you, that those are 2 4-hour modules in that week. And then weeks 4 through 7 are the strategy labs. And the strategy labs is where we take our participants to an advanced level of application. So if we're talking about organizational networks and communication, we're going to be amping that up a level, intersecting it with decision-making and complexity. And you're going to be working on your strategic leadership challenge with your facilitators and your peers in small breakout sessions. And weeks 4 through 7 are 90-minute sessions. So it's basically like a really powerful meeting you're having at work and fits really nicely into the flow of work. What we like about this format is it keeps senior leaders at work very busy, but having a deep dive in weeks 2 and 3 and using weeks 4 through 7 to integrate their learning over time. I'm very conscious that we're getting right to the end of time, and I want to make sure that there's time for 1 or 2 questions that might have surfaced. And we are really excited to bring these 3 live online programs to you all.
Great, Kelly. We've got one question. How do we make sure employees get the most out of live online learning experience?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. One is to make sure that they are given the space in their work week to do both the module itself and the preparation and post work required for that. So one of the advantages is you don't have to take the extra travel time, in and out of the office to go to a program that's away. But at the same time, management, your leadership should give you the space to actually give yourself fully to the program, not be intervened, being pulled to meetings, or have to deliver significant deliverables on the day or in the week of that major program.
Okay. I think that's all we have time for. So thank you so much, Carissa, Kelly, and Monica, for providing an overview of 3 CCL virtual programs, which offer leaders connection, engagement, and personalized support during a time when it's needed most. Tomorrow, everyone who registered will receive a follow-up email with a link to this webinar recording and additional resources. As you exit the webinar, we hope you take a moment to complete the evaluation so we can continue making these product events worth your while.
All right, that was fantastic. This actually concludes today's webcast. Thank you all for attending. We will send all registrants an email tomorrow with the link to the recording, and please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts.